Yeah, I think so. So we have sign-up sheets for the Medicinal Mindfulness newsletter, but also a DMTx newsletter. So that's our primary mechanism of talking to a whole bunch of people at once. And so we'll probably be announcing like focus groups and things on that. So make sure you're signed up for that. So let me talk a little bit more about the vision. This is new information, and then if we want, we can talk about Psychonaut protocol training characteristics and things. But just to create a foundation, like you said, we're in a new area. There's a first stage which is evaluating 3 paths to this expedition. The first path is FDA approved research study in Boulder, Colorado. I think whatever we do, the foundation will be, of the quality of the skill and the safety measures and all of that will be at this level to what we could get approved by the FDA. Second path is not FDA approval, but a scientific approval process in another country, where ayahuasca is legal, but it's still a research project. So research in another country. Right, this one I don't know anything about. We have some people, our legal team, looking at this question right now, like where could we do it? The third one that is probably the most radical, I would think, in a radical idea, right, is to do an expedition in another country under religious freedom laws in that country. So not push the religious freedom argument in this country, right? DMT is clearly illegal in this country. But to do an expedition, a scientific expedition under a religious freedom legal path. And what that would look like is where ayahuasca is legal, we're looking into where the actual substance, DMT, is legal. And if we can find that place, this country, the goal would be to work at a retreat center with medical support to actually do the journey. A series of journeys. That's the quickest possibly, right? Because we don't have to go through the FDA approval process. And right now, I'm not 100% attached to that, but the long-term goal is research center or program with DMT in Boulder, Colorado. The goal is also to be sustainable, so not just do it once, but learn from it and do it again and again and again. So, just as this is really preliminary. I have a budget guy looking, somebody with research and business background looking at this question right now. But right now, just the exploration of these 3 paths, it could be around $125,000 to implement. And then, if we took phase 3, I'll explain that in just a second. Or path 3. That's about $375,000. Just as a rough estimate to give people an idea of what we're need to raise and everything. I know I don't need to go into the details here, but we're working on it. I want to just briefly describe the room. This is the room with the DMT experience. There would be some sort of chair or bed where the person would lay down on. Carla and I would be the co-facilitators holding space for that person. The doctor would be over here with the IV machine hooked in. A nurse would also be in the room. And possibly a tech expert. There would be a camera and possibly a tech expert, although the tech person might be outside. On the outside of the room, there would be the tech people looking at all the monitoring stuff. The doctor would be monitoring vitals. The nurse would be assisting the doctor, and the doctor would also be providing the flow rate for the DMT. So that's a hyper-technical position. We actually have an ally who's an emergency medical room doctor and somebody who's been trained by a lot of psychedelic godfathers and stuff who's very gifted. So we're actively recruiting this position right now. On the outside, there would be another therapist for post-integration work, maybe a couple of sitters to hold space and just be with people who are still coming down from the experience. And then a therapist it could also be a minister. And then the last position, if anybody's interested, is the assessment expert. This would be the person who's doing a lot of the pre-post, probably in conjunction with Carla's work, but somebody else would actually be doing the post-assessments after the session so that everybody in the room can take a break, take care of themselves, that sort of thing, and get ready for the next one. The goal, if we did the phase 3, the goal, I keep saying phase 3, that's a different study. If we did that path 3, the goal would be to have like a 7-day prep in Boulder, 4 to 5 days at the site for intention and preparation support, like imagine doing yoga every day and that sort of thing. And then 2 sets of journeys. I'm thinking 6 to 8 psychonauts would come with us. So the first set, all the 6 or 8 psychonauts would get a short kind of baseline experience, make sure that we got the equipment going right and everything, and we know what we're doing to the person. So that would be a short experience, and then a break. Here, everybody relax, recover, and then a longer experience. So either 3 a day. I could see myself being able to hold space for 3 a day if we did it in a retreat setting for the short experiences. And I could also see us holding space for 2 a day for the extended stay experiences. So you think of a morning session and an afternoon session. So lots of time to integrate. Even if we're doubling or tripling the experience, it's still only an hour or something like that. And then another 7, or I think I was thinking like a 6-day integration period at the retreat, and then another 7 days of monitoring on the return. And then ongoing support, and then next year do it again with a bigger group and a bigger team and more psychonauts and that sort of thing. If we got full funding, and we included a lot of time for training the psychonaut community and the selection process of picking psychonauts. Again, I don't have any attachment to these psychonauts being my friends or me or just people who are in the inn and know. We want to make it available for the people who are really interested and who have the best capacities to, bring people to participate safely and bring back information that's somehow useful. So best case scenarios, spring 2020. That's probably not going to happen, honestly. But if we could, I mapped it out to do it. The thing is, we're engaging in a transpersonal phenomenon here. We're following threads, exploring ideas, and so it's really hard to create a linear path when we have that intention. But this is actually realistic, I think. Even if we push it back a year, it's still just another year. So that's what the path 3, the idea of doing an expedition jaunt, proof of concept in another country where we could do it legally. As you can see, we're filming this today, and the idea is that we are want to promote it. We want to share what we discover. We're going to film every bit about it and figure out a way to tell everybody what happened. Good, the bad, and ugly. So that's the game plan there. We can open it up for questions, or I can also check in with you a little bit about psychonaut qualifications.
I have 3 questions. Is DMT far out stuff? Yes or no?
It's far out stuff.
Yes. Far out stuff. Okay. Do we support furtherance of this work? We have any yeses here?
Yes.
Okay, all right, now reach up with your right hand and reach into the cosmos now, come on.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm with
Turn
you.
the key, turn the golden key. Etan Adama Ureyu, we set the intention for this to happen in this way.
Just bring it
Bringing
in.
it in.
Simple light, simple light, coming in, it's all beautiful.
I got it.
Yeah. Well, you're bringing up a really good point. For me, the real experiment here is testing the vision that we regularly receive, that humans on this planet can do pretty amazing things, even glitchy, imperfect, and, human, right? That we can create something really big in this world. And so this idea of bringing it down, this is a very common theme in psychedelics, is how do we bring this vision down? And what I discovered is that I couldn't take steps into it without speaking about the larger vision. Y'all wouldn't be here if we were just talking about psychedelic harm reduction or something. So yeah, the idea is to bring something back, bring something down, bring something to the world that helps this crazy crisis period that we're in.
Just goes beyond.
Or just we just bypass it in some way. Yeah.
If you're talking about going Route 3, how would you hold space or make sure that you're not trampling on native traditions in that route?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that needs to be an ongoing conversation, right? Like every step of the way.
Yep.
We would be working with people that would be a safe container for cultural expression, and also the idea of like not using ayahuasca for an experiment like this is that this is something different than, in some ways, something different than how DMT has been used in the past by traditional people, indigenous people. One of the whole ideas is finding our own way to these states without having to co-opt or take in another person's religious experience, So that's a really important question. Yeah.
Or integrate that so deeply into the work that it's theirs.
Yeah.
Their work, and we're just sort of writing it down in some way.
No,
I'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we want to like, so again, we acknowledge privilege from the very beginning. This is something that we want to bring into every step of the conversation and making sure that we're doing something in a way that feels appropriate and honoring of many traditions. Yeah. So I would like to just say, let's keep that as like forefront in our ongoing conversations. So thank you for bringing that up.
I have a question or clarification for the Route 3. Are you going to be using DMT or ayahuasca?
DMT. Yeah. So again, this is a really great idea. Lots of roadblocks, but I've been through roadblocks before. Like I know how to engage them and how to surf around them sometimes. But it would have to, again, even if we did the third path, it would still have to be safe enough to fulfill the requirements of the FDA approval process path. So whatever DMT that we did use, even if we acquired it legally in another country, the person would have to be incredibly skilled at making it. My preference would be it would be made with intention in some way, but then it would be tested by sites, probably multiple research sites that would test it to make sure that we were using the correct medicine. Yeah.
So the 2020 is for doing it in Boulder?
No, I can't project that. I don't know enough about the FDA approval process. We have a few allies who are looking into that. The reason I was focusing on Path 3 is, one, I found it really inspiring, but two, it was something that I could budget for, figure out, and get at least a starting point to have these conversations. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if you were going to do it out of the country, would it be possibly sooner than 2020?
No. Yeah, probably not. So again, one of the primary ideas that we have is, have y'all ever heard of like the healthy volunteer standard in psychedelic research? Healthy volunteer is basically just like, it turns out a lot of them are friends of the person who's doing the psychedelic research. But they go through some safety assessments, health physicals and things like that, and they're a healthy volunteer. Our goal is, like, and the reason for this is, we have a different goal, and that's because Rick Strassman in his book DMT and the Soul of Prophecy compared like prophetic experiences in the Old Testament to modern DMT experiences. And one of the big differences he found was the quality of the experience was less now than the quality of the vision or the information that was received in a prophetic state by somebody who was a spiritual practitioner. And so theoretically, if we add the dimension of skill set, developing skill sets to a healthy volunteer, then we should be able to get better information from the experience. So like imagine somebody not being able to really focus in a DMT state. That would be like watching TV and just changing the channel every 5 seconds. I'm not going to get a lot out of that one, right? I don't know what we're going to get out of that. So we want people who have some good foundational skill sets already. And I personally believe that we can call them traits, that some people are better at certain things than others, of course. We all have our gifts. But these skill sets can also be developed. So if we find people with gifts and talents in these arenas, and then we make sure that we train them in a way that everybody's on the same page, we have the same language, we have the same skill sets and practices, then I think it will increase the quality pretty substantially. To give you an idea, like one of the things that we're going to promote tonight is a webinar series. This is kind of a fundraiser, something to have fun with, but I'm creating a webinar, 4-part webinar, where you will gain a lot of the foundational skill sets, some practices and concepts that would be appropriate for somebody to start developing to be an extended state DMT psychonaut. And so that's starting mid-January, if you're interested in that. And then we have, we're going to experiment with it's like a 5-day training retreat, and it's at a yoga center here in Boulder in September 2018. If you're interested in participating in an actual experiential, a 5-day experiential for people who want to be extended state DMT psychonauts, that's going to be really, one, it'll be a lot of fun, and 2, very transformational and evocative. We'll be using yoga, but also mindfulness based breathwork techniques, and we can also incorporate cannabis, psychedelic journeys with cannabis into these experiences because that's legal here. So we're a little outside of the box. I don't know if you noticed. But so that'll be in September, and then real quick, and then the idea is there'll be a 6-month training period through 2019 where we're figuring out who the best psychonauts would be. So there's going to be like this competitive thing going. We're going to figure out how to manage that piece. The idea, though, that it's just the first people. We got room for everybody, hopefully.
Kind of like gold bars.
Pick up some people. and then there'll be a selection process, and then the psychonauts and the team will start training together. And then we go on the expedition in the spring. That's the idea. And I really love the idea. And I acknowledge that there's going to be a lot of things to figure out, and work through, and bump up against, and run away from. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing, is that this is the early stages of how to run this experiment. And so I'm really curious about the participant or psychonaut selection process, and then how generalizable the results are going to be to someone who isn't an exceptional candidate to taking DMT and having their dosages manipulated. Right? It seems like this is at the stage it's at right now is experimenting with how to do the experiment.
Yeah. It's
It's collecting
really
our community, Gary. collecting our community, you know, and sort of mining that community for intelligence. And yeah, it is pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great question.
Yeah, so yeah, we're not just in the, I'm just sharing this idea stage. We're recruiting a team. So the team includes Carla and myself, and we also have Shane Moss as our lead Psychonaut trainee. We wanted somebody to take on that role, take the brunt of the publicity, you know, that something like that would bring. We also have a medical advisor. I've got an event organizer. We are actively recruiting the medical doctor who would be the administrator of the DMT, and we have a really solid lead for that one. We have an assessment expert who's going to be helping Carla out, and he'll also be helping with the FDA approval process. Who else do we have?
Debbie and John.
Yeah, people who are skilled at using advanced brain imaging and brain scanning technology, and also heart rates and rhythms and breath rates to determine safe states of being. You know, so we're recruiting, and you know, the medical doctor, the advisor we have, you know, has resources of multiple medical doctors, you know, a whole team of nurses and things. And we're also looking at ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as a bridge to DMT research, because ketamine-assisted therapies for depression and things can use the same infusion pump technology as the DMT experience. So we could create some experiences before we even go where people are using the infusion pump technology and getting used to it. So it really is, right now we're developing, like creating a core community, and then also promoting it in a way it's like, hey, look at this really good idea, we want feedback right now from the very beginning. Instead of it being, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing over here because this is really cool, we're going to keep it to ourselves, you know, so. Fundraising, we haven't really started that yet, so that's kind of our next goals. But also to do the fundraising in a way that is community oriented, and so like this idea of the webinar, you're getting something for it, but the money goes to the research. So even if you never did DMT research, or it'd be a Psychonaut, it'd be worth attending. And we're also looking at creative projects. Art. I don't know if you see the image that we have on our poster, you know, making T-shirts and things like that. You know, again, more also to create community involvement as much as anything else. But yeah, we're in the creating stage. The research itself is pretty complex, and it will require Dr. Gallamore's input and other medical doctors' inputs to, again, make sure that we're dosing people safely, and that hasn't been figured out yet by anybody. You know. Yeah.
Is there thought to bring tradition in on it, like to learn from culture, like bring music or chanting into the extended state?
Yeah, like remember we said the spirituality piece is a pretty important piece, so why not work with the people who are already experts on the sacredness of, you know, DMT through ayahuasca and things. I come from a more eclectic and not a particular tradition or religious tradition. And so it's important that we not impose a particular tradition on somebody's experience. So music and things would probably be less culturally specific. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Or it might be like almost mechanical, like a tone and binaural beats or something like that. Music is a major factor here, and that we've got to figure out.
You had mentioned that there are other studies being done using like MRIs and stuff, and then you just mentioned brain mapping. Are you going to be incorporating that in this actual study?
Yeah, everybody's going to be wearing weird head gear and clip their ears clipped, and you know, maybe sometimes we might even be like testing breath rates and stuff. But we'll also be using that technology to train them. So like with biofeedback and things, you know, like we want to be able to work with people who can calm themselves down in extreme states pretty quickly, right? And so we can use that equipment in the training and then use it to see what's going on in the DMT state. There's actually researchers now mapping dreams through neuroscanning, and they're able to like kind of pick out some of the images in people's dreams, and they're also learning how to feed the image back into people's brains. So by the time this research really takes off, there's going to be so much technology that we get to play with that we really just need to focus on ensuring that we got the dose levels right and all of that, because all of that's going to come. I really envision, some sort of AI being in the room, And then to answer your question about safety for like volunteers, the idea is we're going to be way over the top on safety in the beginning, and then we can figure out what's not necessary and keep stripping it down to a long-term goal would be to create some sort of box, and a technician is trained to use it, and it's got AI, and it monitors your vitals and everything, and somebody can just go to a clinic or go to the technician could go visit them in their home, just strap them in, and how long do you want to go, how deep do you want to go, and how quick do you want to get there. And then the technician sits, holds space for it, the little machine turns off when the program is complete, or if there's a crisis, heart rate goes up too high or something like that, or blood pressure goes up too high, it automatically shuts off. So we're talking that's, decades down the road probably, but when you start thinking about DMT research, you start thinking about all our great possibilities. We've got this image that we're playing with. A friend of mine, this is just a draft, but this is 2 people facilitating a DMT experience in space. You got a little guy floating there. So the Mars trips, they're going to be really bored. Maybe we should introduce them to extended state DMT, Let me just check in, before I answer any other questions, let me just check in with Carla here. This is a very alive conversation.
Wonderful.
Yeah. How are you? Is there anything you'd like to add? Or?
Doing great. There was something I wanted to say. Set and setting, part of the set and setting for the MDA was music, and some other things that they had, usable things for people to interact with, and I think that'll absolutely be part of it. Whether it'll be each person's sort of creation, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to see, that's part of what we'll see. Good idea.
Yeah, the technology, AI is already writing music, and they're already starting to connect AI-written music with brainwave patterns, and so theoretically, not far from here, a psychedelic journeyer could put on a little cap or something and hit the play button, and the music is just designed to go with their trip the whole time, and it's never been played previously, and it will never be played again unless it's recorded. And this is look at Brian Eno, he's doing this work with some people. This is stuff that's already happening, and so why not? Let's not make it like a culturally appropriating. Let's make it completely new. There's so many options. It just gets overwhelming. If you think you go too far high, it's so many ideas that if you don't hold on to one and try to manifest it, everything falls flat.
That's why we started with the grounding exercise.
Yeah.
There's one over there.
Yeah.
I apologize if you already mentioned this, but I don't know much about smoking DMT. I know about ayahuasca, and I'm curious, the role that the ayahuasca vine, the capi or yahe, it's an MOI inhibitor. So how does MOA? Yeah, the enzyme, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that play out when you smoke? Is there something that...
No, it bypasses the stomach, and so you don't
right.
need the MAOI. It goes right into your bloodstream. Yeah. So the new research has shown that NN-DMT is produced in your lungs, and that's why Wim Hof is getting a lot of attention, but also the breath work that we do. It's actually producing these big deep breathing experiences might be actually producing endogenous DMT, and so it doesn't have to go into your gut. It just goes right into your bloodstream and into your brain, and possibly supporting dream stuff. Let's keep going. I want to make sure everybody. So you and you.
I was just gonna ask about the path, the third path.
Mhm.
The test subject that you would have for that, would you bring them down there with you wherever you go, or are you planning on finding like indigenous people who would, like who will be your test subjects for those?
Who shows up? You know, so we've gotten over 800 inquiries for Psychonauts. I've gotten resumes. I've gotten all kinds of wild letters. I've gotten some pretty great letters. So 800, and we're looking at 6 to 8. You're looking at less than 1% the people, at least this first time, you know, could do it. So again, how do you create one that's skills-based, somebody that step into and then get an opportunity to do this based on merit, not status of being a part of an in-community of psychedelic researchers? That's my question, and that, you know, to me that's really inspiring. And, you know, like I've been part of the MAPS MDMA study. Allison was part of the MAPS MDMA study. Carla was. I mean, there were 30 people that went through it here. I mean, they've gotten thousands and thousands of inquiries for people who want to participate in that, and we expect to get many, many more. So that's why I wanted to play with the webinar idea. It's like, hey, here's some ideas that you can go do now to prepare you. These are things you can do to prepare you for an extended state experience. And even if you never do extended state DMT, it's really going to add an incredible layer of amazement to your psychedelic experiences. I mean, we do this with cannabis, right? So like, that's not supposed to happen, but we're doing psychedelic trips all the time, right? So I know that these skill sets work. But how do you do it in a way that can be tested, you know? So having the training retreat, everybody's in the room, really get to know people. We can also get to know you through participating in our psychedelic sitter school program. So people who would be interested in being like volunteer sitters, you know, and go on the expedition with us. That could be a path for somebody to participate.
Because you said you're still going to follow these people after the 7-day return, correct?
Yeah. That reminds me that budget that I showed you. Not only it's about a month, right? And I don't come from a wealthy family or anything, so I wouldn't be able to volunteer for this if I wanted to. You know, let's take a whole month off of work. So in the budget is income replacement for the facilitators, but also the psychonauts. So after a certain point, the psychonauts will be getting paid to participate, so that they can, again, everybody can take a month off their life and go down and do this journey. In the far back, in the
this might be slightly superficial, but we watched this kind of interview thing on ketamine-induced therapy for alcoholism, and the room, it was medical. So I'm wondering, is it going to be like a very sterile medical environment, or is it going to be tapestry?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what would this look like? We wouldn't be, so that would be just medical right here. That would be just 1/4 of how we would create the room. So imagine candles and low lighting. You know, again, safety is a priority. There would be equipment in the room. How do we make it not beep? Was one of my biggest questions, right? A lot of medical equipment beeps. The doctors and the nurse would be situated behind the psychonaut, so they wouldn't be in their field of vision. So, and then there would be 2 people right here. And then I would like to see like where the psychonaut is facing some sort of sacred image. Again, that's congruent with the beliefs or interests of the particular psychonaut. Anything that we could do to create safety and comfort for the person going through that, we would deck it all out. And the retreat centers, like, I'm not going to disclose where we're looking at now, but it would be a retreat center where this type of stuff is done. Yeah.
Ambulances.
There would be a medical team. There'd probably be a medical team, backup team, actually already there.
Out the door.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you guys had an idea as far as scheduling when you're planning on trying to narrow the field down and start to do interviews, and also if you have any dates set for that September retreat.
Yeah, so that form, that sheet I gave you, I don't have a copy anymore. On the back side, there's the dates of the webinar. We can get you a copy if you don't have one. So that's the first step. And then the September, what do we have the dates for? September
26 to 9:30. Daniel, did you have a copy? party?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that next.
Okay.
Yeah. So the retreat yoga studio is scheduled for September 26th to the 30th. And I don't know the price or anything like that. But again, it's like these are opportunities to create community, to really have a great time, and to support DMT work. And then somehow, maybe it takes several of those to recruit the right people. I don't really know. But you're going to want to think, like, do I have physical stamina? Do I work out? Do I have a good heart? Because that's going to be impacted by your experience. If I have trauma, have I worked through it, or am I working through it? Do I have skill sets to engage it? Because that stuff could come up. And then what mindfulness practices can I develop right now that practice focus, right? You don't want to have to be just keep changing the channel. But also surrender and allowing, which is a little different than, like, say, an astronaut, right? They're not just, they need to be right on there, right? But a psychonaut needs to be able to focus while fully surrendering into annihilation, bliss, ecstasy.
Meeting the divine.
Yeah, all of the above, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the big thing, this was a preliminary meeting. I realized one of the reasons we wanted to do this is I realized at the party that we're doing next week, I wasn't going to have this much time to talk about this. I knew people were curious. So I wanted to share what I could with you all, and again, in a free space as opposed to the fundraising space. So that's why we're doing this today. But we are having a gathering. It's called Psychedelic Shine, DMTx Update, and Psychedelic Society Social. It's a big word. It's our intergalactic fundraiser for DMT. So who knows who's going to show up, right? Like, I've been trying to figure out where the conspiracy is here. We have tickets for students. We have scholarships tickets for students to make it accessible. Those are $49, and then the regular price is $99. Again, it's a fundraiser, so that's why we raised the price. And we have a lot of live music. We have we have our breathwork band, the Boom Boom, playing, which is going to be really great, trippy music. And then we have a couple of DJs, and then we got a whole bunch of food coming, for people to eat. And it's also a cannabis-friendly event. We've gotten permission from the owners to make it a cannabis-friendly event. We're going to have this art installation outside with some really trippy art. I won't tell you about it. You can look it up. And we'll have a cannabis bar set up there. My request is if you smoke, you get a designated driver. That's my biggest boundary piece. And that's, again, not to just keep you safe, but to keep us safe from shit happening. What else can I tell y'all about the party? It goes from 8 to 2. It's gonna be really fun. It's just an excuse to bring everybody together. So Allison can take tickets purchases tonight for either the webinar or the party. And there's posters over there too if you want to take them or spread them around or give them to friends. And we can also take donations. If anybody wants to help us out in that way. I'm looking into the legal questions of selling tickets to the psychedelic spaceship, DMT. Like having one or two sponsors. You know how like those rich people do they go to the space station, or they fly around the world once, and just to go to space. I think somebody would be willing to do that, right? But there's some big questions on that path. So, yeah. That's unless somebody wants me to talk about something. I feel complete about my presentation, but we're happy to answer questions. And then, Carla, if you had anything.
Nothing to add. I'm good.
Yeah.
Want to hear from you guys?
Yeah.
A couple questions.
Yeah, let's hear from y'all now. Everybody doing okay? We're seeing still some good energy in the room. How about in the back again, and then you over here? Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to learn more about the sitters training.
Sitters training. So we've been developing psychedelic sitter school for about 6 years now or so, and it's turning into a training where I specifically teach strategies and techniques to do your own journey work. Because if you're going to be sitting for others, I need to know that you're not going to freak out yourself, right? So that's part of the experience, and also how to gain really good skill sets on integrating the experiences. So it's a lot about your own journey work. We start with a Wednesday night cannabis circle, which is a group psychedelic experience. You get to know you conversation. And then the next 2 days, we split the group up, and half of the group sits for the other half for a psychedelic cannabis experience. So everybody gets to experience sitting and participating in that way. We have 4 modules on creating space, and crisis intervention, how to do shadow work. I don't know if many people here know about shadow work, but how to engage shadow material that comes up in communities and in yourself. Because waking up is waking up to unconscious material, right? And half of that shit's shadow. And it's just really a big part of our community process. And then how to stay safe as a sitter and facilitator, right? What are the long-term ways to stay safe? A lot of our work is very somatically oriented, meaning belly breathing, grounding, centering, and also very energetic oriented, how to move energy through the space so you can be a secondary nervous system and a conduit for healing for your clients and your friends and things. After the 2 days of sitting for each other, we go back into another cannabis experience. And again, the intention for that one is working with unseen allies in transpersonal realms. So that's a big part of people's processes. And then on Sunday morning, we end it with a breathwork experience to just help clear out all the stuff that was brought up in the process. So that's the first weekend, and then we have another weekend called Psychedelic Guiding with Cannabis Sativa. Again, why we work with cannabis is because it's legal, and it's shorter, but it can be just like psilocybin or MDMA or other medicines. And these skill sets and guiding skill sets translate to other medicines. So I can legally teach and stay safe on my end and pass on knowledge and information on how to do this work with other medicines. It's my favorite part of my program, Psychedelic Sitter School. This year we're starting to teach breathwork training and facilitation too. So the webinar series that I was just talking about, that's like a 4-part series. We might add other modules to it. So the second module would be how to do breathwork for trauma resolution, right? Because we all need to clear that stuff out before we're going into an extended state DMT experience. And then the third module would be how to use cannabis for psychedelic experiences. Again, because it's legal and it's accessible, and it has a unique characteristic that it's a little more. You're able to navigate cannabis experiences with a little more agency than other psychedelics. And then once you learn how to do that with cannabis, those skill sets translate to other psychedelics. And so theoretically, that skill set would translate to the DMT experience. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a qualitative difference in its intensity. But I mean, people have had DMT experiences on cannabis in my circles, and I have too. So it's not that far out.
Combined with breathwork, you mean?
Well, no, breathwork too, but cannabis. That's not part of our conversation tonight. But yeah, it's a special blend, and people who've used DMT before can re-induce DMT experiences with pot. I've had mescaline-like experiences on cannabis, psilocybin, MDMA, DMT. I've had wild experiences on cannabis. It's a lot of fun. This is my day job. I love it. Yeah.
I had a question about the physical aspects of the DMT. You were talking about the heart, for instance. If you had high blood pressure or low blood pressure, what tends to be more of the experience in past research of does the heart rate drop or does it accelerate more?
I think it accelerates. I think your blood pressure goes up. Yeah, so those are things that we need to get some medical advice to specifically figure out what would be a contraindication and what wouldn't. So this is a drug study, so a lot of the drugs in your system would have to be out of your system. But I don't know what the details of that would be yet. So that would include everybody. That would include if you wanted to be a DMT psychonaut for the study, that would mean taking long fasts from other substances before and afterwards, because poly drug use is a factor in having uncontained clinical experiences, or what we call a mixed episode. transpersonal, but you're not quite able to hold it together with it. So that would be a factor. It would be something that might stop some people from doing that. But we would have to be really careful.
Does that include pot?
I don't know. I've been thinking about that. Yeah, I definitely have a prejudice towards pot, and it's a great training tool. So I would be and it doesn't have any. It doesn't affect people, it's not unsafe to use with other psychedelics, but at the very least in the session itself and probably weeks before and after, there's probably no substance use. And that would include pharmaceuticals for physical and psychological uses, right? And so we would have to, one of the things I'm learning is that a lot of us have been misdiagnosed in our community. Right? And so we, Carla and I and other people on our team know how to assess what is a transpersonal phenomenon versus a clinical problem. And so even if somebody had a history of a diagnosis or something, that wouldn't automatically be a disqualifier. Lots of our struggles psychologically come from trauma, and one of the things I do for a living is help people heal their trauma and teach them skill sets to do that. So theoretically, we can clean a psyche up before we ship them off with DMT. That's the idea. Kevin?
Has there been any research about DMT affecting people with antidepressants? I mean, I'm not on it, I'm just curious.
Yeah, you really need to pay attention to SSRIs and other things. I don't know the details. I bet Riley here, I bet there's other people that would be able to answer that question better than I do. But yeah, we would need to be really careful around particularly psychoactive pharmaceuticals and DMT.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, so another area that we could get some support in is research groups, and research circles where people are like, hey, we have a question. Anybody want to figure it out? Figure out the answer. We just ship it off, get it back. Just keep doing this and work with our collective expertise. Did you have a question?
I did. Going back to that, your research groups or whatever, is part of the aim of getting these groups together to figure out the legal recourse to actually get to this goal?
Yeah, part of the budget, the first level budget to assess all three stages, there would be a lot of money going to legal teams. I wouldn't see any of it. But we need to budget some capacity to engage those questions with the legal team. We're working with a good friend of mine is a lawyer who is going to help us with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy questions. She's on board helping with some of these questions. But this is beyond somebody's hobby. We would need to pay for some very, very specific legal advice. So this May, number one goal of this is to do it all legally. Even if we have to push the edges of legality, right? Do it under a religious freedom in another country, but we'd still be doing it legally. I'm not going to be if I were wanting to do something illegal, we wouldn't be having these conversations, right? You wouldn't know who I am or any of that stuff, right?
Be on what is it, the dark web or the black?
Yeah, we don't know what the dark web is.
Plus, Nate, what was your question?
It was about just finding out if anyone here was going to be part of that avenue of legal recourse, and he was kind of answering that with the...
Rick Strassman actually published the process that he used to get through the system, and we're going to follow that pretty closely.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Riley, we got maybe time, we're starting to feel the energy of the space moving. Let's check in with anything left unsaid or incomplete, and then we'll close it up here soon.
I've asked you this before, Carla, but let's say you get people into a steady state where they're in that peak experience. Would the first step just to be to hear from them and catalog what they're seeing?
Absolutely.
What here's, just write it down.
Yeah, we'd be watching for, first of all, what are all the biological things going on? Then when can they first speak? Right? Because that's a piece. When do they actually have something they want to articulate? These are different parts of the process of a return. So I think part of that will be just looking at what happens and kind of cataloging that. And then when they do speak, I think we would definitely want to capture what is the first, part that comes out. And then there's usually quite a bit more that comes as they are able to, it's like a dream in many ways, isn't it? So, there's a process of how that kind of returns to us. And then, so I would want to get all of that before I started saying, and okay, number 1, number 2, doing that more objective testing. Yeah. But it's all going to be, a lot of different things. Trying to incorporate a lot of what we already know about good research and make the best use we can of the opportunity that we have.
You have a follow-up question?
Well, so then ideally, so people come back, they say, I saw this, I saw that, I saw that. And then is there a next question that you want to ask that might be answerable in a long state that isn't answerable in a short state?
I think the main one that I'm aware of, and this may change as I talk with all of you and do the interviews and so forth, is, what meaning are you making of that? What is the impact of it? What is your sense of what actually happened there? So you might see a geometric, mask of some sort that turns into a, elephant, and then the elephant starts talking to you. There are pieces of that. And then who was the elephant? That elephant could be part of that divinity that we're talking about. It comes in different avenues. So, yeah, I think it could be fascinating. And part of that we can do with the data mining. Just where have you been already? What have you done? Tell me what you know about this. So that we're not starting from scratch.
Yeah, and Riley, maybe this is pushing edges, but can a research proposal be initiated that questions the reality of the inner experience? Can you get something that you couldn't get otherwise? Know something that you shouldn't know? Or can two people, so imagine a future expedition, not the first one, but two people going through it at once. Maybe they're in different rooms, and maybe you can do some sort of psychic experiments, one person is trying to send an image
this long.
to the other person, but that's where people want to go with it, right? Can we prove the existence of these beings? And that's really not the question for these initial studies. But how could you not question that and gather information and make some interesting theories about what you're perceiving?
Reality.
What is the nature of reality? That's all.
And consciousness.
Yeah.
You had talked about interviews and kind of data mining from
Yes.
there. What other ideas do you have for staying connected to the community and listening to people's experiences and the data they're collecting also too on their own?
Do you have any?
I've never taken DMT.
Well, that's okay. A lot of people haven't. I'm reading, so I'm looking into all of that right now. But I'm open to your thoughts. Again, that's part of why I want to hear from you. What do you think I should do? How can I be the most productive interviewer and researcher that I can be? Because I don't know all that everyone knows. We're smarter together.
Yeah.
Would we like to have more focus groups and stuff? Would that be of interest to people? Imagine a circle of 20 people, right, where people can actually talk a lot.
But and really express your experiences, talk about what they mean and so forth.
Yeah, so let's plan on that. And then we're having more parties. I think our community is so isolated. Our community is so scattered. Just us coming together and meeting each other is a healing process. So we're just using this as an excuse to have more gatherings, and then the trainings. Yeah. So we're really open to ideas.
2 more, Richard. Oh, 3 more.
Do I get to ask a question now?
Well, sure.
Do you think there's a chance that the first psychonauts might not speak for a long time?
Yes.
Maybe
I think that's possible.
Everyone speaks to you.
Maybe never, huh? I mean, it's hard to articulate.
Just had to throw that in.
Well, yeah, you know.
We waited for 47 hours, and this person was not able to really describe what happened. Okay, it was pretty cool, though, they said. Yeah, I think
I just had to throw that in.
that's,
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's impossible to describe a transpersonal or peak experience to begin with. And so then when you're, and that's maybe part of this learning process is, you know, being able to start to articulate, begin to bring language to what is happening and work with that so that we're better at it and more skillful.
And that there would be a huge emphasis on healthy team dynamics, you know, and like setting up protocols for conversations before and after. So if there were any like these aren't always good experiences, right? And so what happens when we extend a very difficult experience? We would want to make sure that there would be a lot of support in place and that the person felt incredibly safe. So that's why I was talking about like having the psychonauts and teams like working with each other, training, play, you know, and acting out the trips, you know, engaging the protocols, you know, with alpha medicine, really everybody getting to know each other so that the relationships can handle, you know, big experiences and possibly crisis. Remember, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're really public about this. So that means being public about bad things that could happen. You know, and if they did happen, we would have to, I mean, we've got the camera right here. We're filming a lot of this, so there's going to be evidence for it. So we're taking our time and stepping into it as gently as we can. Again, while still holding that really big vision. Yeah.
I'm just curious if the approval for IRB would go through Naropa.
Yes, that's the project. That's the hope.
And then the next, I guess, just reiterate the importance of this community keeping in mind how important that is.
Yes.
And how mindful we really have to be about treading lightly about any research and any data we collect.
Thank you.
It needs to go through that and it needs to start there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We got. I mean,
and that's
so
a process in and of
yeah.
itself, right?
Big process.
Yeah.
Big process.
And you know, like these are we all have different professional, ethical requirements and constraints and all of that, right? So we have to navigate that whole field. And there's no way in hell I would ask Carla to do something and say, oh, by the way, I want you to risk your license in doing it, you know.
Well, I had to actually remind everybody that we were just having a conversation tonight.
Yeah.
We were not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was even tender right there here at Naropa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please,
Yeah.
gentle with
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's delicate.
It's
I really like
lots
my
of trauma.
I don't want it to be chopped up. There was a couple right here, and then.
Yeah, I have two things. One, do you think that the party that you're going to have next week will sell out? You already think people could buy tickets at the door?
I'm hoping not, that people will be able to buy tickets at the door. There's some legal constraints that we have to pay attention to because of the cannabis piece.
Right.
So it's better to buy the tickets beforehand. We can sell you tickets tonight. We have like 13 student tickets left. And you know, we're planning on it to sell out, but who knows? Right now it's a big enough party for us to have a really good time, so I'm happy.
And then the second thing that I wanted to say is that I make and sell merchandise for a living. You were talking about making the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Also make pins and a lot of other stuff. And I sell stuff at a lot of different shows and festivals and would love to sell the t-shirts to help through the fundraiser. Also, we can get hat pins made. As you can tell, there's a couple people in here with hat pins. I sell a lot of hat pins.
Do you sell your hat?
Huh?
Do you sell your hat?
Oh, this is a sold out hat from Phil Lewis. Who
I like
sold
that
out.
hat.
But yeah, I'd like to help.
Yeah. Great.
any way I can to help with the fundraisers.
Thank
So I
you.
figured that's the best way that I could help.
Are we
is help
collecting
sell the merchandise
information?
and help make-
Yeah, we have a newsletter sign-up sheet, and then if any things like this, just make a note by your email and stuff.
To make sure we know you.
We're also looking for people who are professionals in areas that we need support in, right? And also student-level professionals. Our relationship with Naropa is a little weird. They're a little hesitant on the, what we're all about. It's a mindfulness, Buddhist-oriented, substances. Even though it's a transpersonal psychology program, there's some edges there. And so, I'm really grateful for Carla being able to create the space for us, and that we. I would like to see this become an internship program for Naropa students, so we don't want to start on the wrong foot in that way. There's already many opportunities for misunderstandings. So.
Is there a student discount for the webinar? How much
No,
does
that's
that
just $99. That's pretty much the discount. But come talk to me. If you're really, the goal is that it helps support the program. So that would be about $25 for each 2-hour session. Be part of something like that, and there'll be like handouts and maybe a lot of email correspondence and things. But we do have a scholarship program. I'm sensitive to class issues, so we want this to be as accessible as possible. So just talk to us if you're really interested in it. And again, once at some point you would be paid if you were selected as a Psychonaut. My goal would be that you'd be paid to do that.
So, 2 minutes.
If for some reason you can't make the fundraiser next weekend, like say you're out of town, you can still join the Psychonaut training webinar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we're going to be, we were hoping to live stream party, at least the presentation parts, but I don't think that's going to happen, but the presentations will be online, so that part of it at least, everybody having a good time probably will be online. We have good boundaries. Yeah.
What's the typical IV dose?
What's that?
What's the typical IV dose?
IV dose of DMT.
It's 0.4 milligrams per kilogram or something like that. It's based on weight, a person's weight. That's how Strassman did it. And then the lower dose would be like 0.2 milligrams per kilogram or something like that. I don't know what what happens, what's the dose for an extended? Depends on how long you extend it, right? I don't know.
Question.
I just find that fascinating. It's going to be per minute or per. Are you planning? You're going to be burning through a lot of DMT. It seems like you can't keep in that state, and you have to keep.
Sounds like a great time to me. I just can't wait to sit in the room. I'm going to be tripping out just sitting there with them. Yeah.
You had a question for a long time. An IRB, an institutional review board, and every human study that's done has to have approval. A lot of that's wrapped up in making sure that people are safe and that their anonymity is guaranteed. So when
This is going to be a big question for us.
yeah, we want to make sure that we might do it online. We have to see, but I'm looking into it in depth.
All right, people. Everybody's leaving. So
Can we
just
say
wanna thank you.
thank you? Any questions?